Hey everyone, this is Mukesh Otwani from learn-animation.com. Today in this video, we are going to see how you can execute Playwright test on LambdaTest. Recently, I completed one complete series on Playwright. So around 25 videos on Playwright. So if you're completely new to Playwright, I would highly recommend you to watch this series where we have seen in detail what is Playwright, the advantages, comparison, how to get started and everything. Coming back to LambdaTest, we have seen in the previous videos how you can run Selenium test on LambdaTest, and this is the video which I will be sharing in the description of this video. Then we have also seen how you can run Cypress test on LambdaTest, and this is the third video where we'll see how you can execute Playwright test on LambdaTest. LambdaTest provides different browser and OS combination where you can run your test on cloud and you will get the results. Apart from this, you can use mobile app, you can use real testing. There are a bunch of features. Definitely I would recommend you to check out LambdaTest and see the different offering they have. So in order to continue, you need to have account on LambdaTest. So go back to the previous videos where we discussed how to get started, how to create account, how to get access key plus username. Plus I will be giving you a link in case if you want to directly create account, you can go through the link, you will be able to navigate and then you can create account directly. Again, this video will be divided into two parts. So if you're completely new to Playwright, you don't have setup, I will show you how to get started with Playwright. Once you're comfortable with Playwright, once local setup is done, then we'll discuss how you can run your Playwright test on LambdaTest. So let's see how we can get started. And I would highly recommend you to watch the video till the end because in this video, we have covered everything in detail. Plus I will be sharing two repositories. One repository will be the same code which we will be discussing. Plus another repository will be complete script, end-to-end script with e-commerce application with page object model. So that will give you a different perspective how you can use Playwright with page object model with LambdaTest. So you will get to know end-to-end scenarios as well. Yeah, so let's get started. So now before we start integrating LambdaTest with Playwright, now we need to make sure that we should have Playwright in our local system. Okay, what we will do first, we'll try to install Playwright in the local system. If you already have Playwright, then you can skip this step. But let's say we're starting from the scratch, then make sure you have Playwright locally installed. We'll try to run some sample test locally. If that is working fine, then in the next part, we will see how we can run the Playwright test on LambdaTest. So this is the official website which you can refer, which is playwright.dev/docs.intro. I will be sharing all these links. Otherwise, you can go to their official website, click on Node.js. Now it depends if you're using Node.js, Python, Java.net. In this example, we're covering Node.js. So if I click on it and let's go to documentation, the first thing that you will see is getting started. Okay, so what we will do, we'll click on installation and here you will get how to install Playwright, what is installed and all this. Anyways, I will show you. The first thing that you need to make sure you should meet the system requirement. So when I say system requirement, we need to install Node.js in our local system. If you don't have Node.js, then I have a dedicated video which I will be sharing with you. So make sure you install Node.js minimum 18 plus so that you can start with Playwright. Talking about operating system, you can use Windows 10 plus, Windows Server 16, Windows Subsystem, Mac OS Ventura 14 and so on. And same goes for Linux. I'm using right now Mac OS 14. Okay, so I will continue with it. First thing that I will make sure I should have a Node.js. So I will open my terminal. If you're using Windows, you will open command prompt. And let's quickly check what is the current Node version I have. So if I say node space hyphen version, I have Node 20.14.0, which is above 18. Similarly, I will check npm version. Yeah, so 10.7.0. So we are good to go. My OS is Mac OS 14, Node.js installed. Now we can continue. Now for this complete development, I will be using Visual Code, but if you're using any other editor, it is exactly the same steps. Only thing is the editor will change. So in case if you don't have VS Code also, I have a dedicated video how to install Visual Code on Windows and Mac. Please download and install. Once you install, you will be getting this welcome window. If you click on this option, right now it says no folder found. So basically, if you already have a Git repository, you can clone or you can open a folder. So what I will do, I will create a folder first. So coming back to this, right now if I check pwd, this is my present working directory. I'm going to create one folder called, let's say, Playwright with LambdaTest. This is the folder which I'm creating, Playwright with LambdaTest. And I will switch to this. So make sure you use cd. cd means change directory, and we are going to this folder. I can import this folder. So if I click on open folder, this is the folder that we created now, right? Playwright with LambdaTest, and it's a blank folder. If you want, you can close this welcome window, and this is the blank folder. Now we can follow the documentation. Come back here, you can see we have one command called npm init playwright@latest. This is basically we will be installing latest version. If you're using yarn, you can use yarn create playwright. If you're using pnpm, you can use pnpm create playwright. What I will be using is npm. Now before we do this, I want you to execute one command called npm init. Okay, the moment I say npm init, basically I'm going to initialize our project. So what this utility will do, it's a small utility, initialize, which will create your project, such as the necessary files and everything. So it says this utility will walk you through creating a package.json file, and now it will ask you a couple of details. The first thing is package name. If you don't want to give any name, hit enter. Version, hit enter. Description, not required. Entry point, same. Test command, nothing. Get repository, blank. Keyword, nothing. Author, nothing. License. So it's creating one package.json file in the same folder which we created. And this is the preview. That is the name, version, and everything. We'll see yes. So now if you notice, we got this package.json file and exactly what details we mentioned. Since we did not mention anything, it created with a default values. Now coming back, let's go back. Now you can see we have one command called npm init playwright@latest. If you want to download any specific version, you can mention the version. Right now we are going with the latest version, so I will copy this, or you can use this copy command. Come back. Either you can execute from the terminal, or in VS Code also, if you go to terminal, if you create a new terminal, you can execute the command from here. As of now, so come back to terminal, you can directly copy paste this command called npm init playwright@latest. Now, if you're working with Mac, if you don't have admin rights, again you will get permission issues. So what you can do, you can write sudo here. So in case if you have any permission issues, it will directly run as a admin. Now hit enter. It will ask password. I will enter my system password, and the moment I hit enter, you can see it's a getting started guide. It says, do you want to use JavaScript or TypeScript? I want to use JavaScript, so I will go with JavaScript. It says where to put your end-to-end test. So there's a by default will be folder created called test. I will want to use the same, so hit enter. Third option is GitHub Actions. Okay, so using GitHub Actions, you can run your complete test on GitHub. So GitHub Actions is a CI/CD platform which will allow you to run on their cloud. So as of now, by default, it is false. Fourth option, install Playwright browsers, can be done manually via npx. As of now, by default, it's set to true. I will say true. Now it is installing Playwright test, and you can see downloading browsers, success, and now you get several commands which you can execute. Okay, so we are going to see this. So you can see now we have node modules, we have tests which came by default, we have more examples in the second folder. This is a package.json file. The moment you run npm init playwright, you can see we got two dev dependencies. This is the version that we are using at the time of recording, and this is the node. Most important part, this is the playwright.config.javascript file. Yeah. Now once you're done, if you want to run end-to-end test, you can execute this command called npx playwright test. Now what I will do, I will press Ctrl C so that I can start using this. The moment I execute this command, and so you can see it's running my test. And did you notice we did not see anything on the UI, right? Because it executed in the headless mode. So whenever I execute this, if you notice, total 6 tests executed, And if I want to see the report, execute this, we can see total 6 tests. 2 on Chromium, 2 on Firefox, 2 on WebKit. Now 2 tests, has title, get started link, has title, get started link, has title, get started link. Basically 2 tests on different browsers. So 2 plus 2 plus 2, total 6. How it picked up? It basically picked your browser from playwright.config file. So basically same test on 3 browsers. So test 1 with 3 browsers, test 2 with 3 different browsers. So that is how it is running. So our Playwright test is running fine. That means everything is running locally. Now we need to see how we can run the same test on LambdaTest. That is what we are going to see. We will be going through some documentation, plus we will be making some code changes. After that, you can start running your test not on these browsers, which is coming by default with Playwright. You can configure any test which you want to run on any specific browser on OS version on LambdaTest. Okay, so before we start integration with LambdaTest, I want you to read through this documentation. Very easy documentation, like how you can integrate Playwright with LambdaTest, or how you can run your Playwright test on LambdaTest. LambdaTest allow you to run your Playwright test across multiple browsers and multiple operating system combination. And this is a quick guide. If you're using Playwright version 1.150 or latest, you can follow this. Let's go with the prerequisite. They already have a detailed documentation on GitHub. So in case if you're working with, let's say, C#, Java, Python, JavaScript, they have given a lot of documentation and quite easy to follow. What we are going to discuss how we can continue with JavaScript. So first of all, we have to make sure that we have to install some dependencies. Then we need to add browser WS endpoint, which is basically WebSocket endpoint. So browser endpoint URL in the script. So this anyways, we have to use it. Then you need to have your username and access key. This we will get directly from the platform. Then we need to set to the environment variable. For Windows, we need to use set. And for Mac and Linux user, we will be using export. I'm using Mac, so I will continue with export. Now this is your main test. So add the below code snippet to your test. Basically, first of all, we need to define the capability. Okay, in which browser you want to run. The browser which is supported is Chrome, Microsoft Edge, Playwright Chromium, Playwright Firefox, Playwright WebKit. Then you can mention the version. When you mention latest, it will take the latest version. But let's say if you want to run on the older versions, you can define the version. Then you have to provide LT options, which is LambdaTest option. Here you need to provide a couple of mandatory details, like you need to provide the platform, in which platform you want to execute. It is Windows, Mac, Linux, then build, then name. This is the main important part, user and access keys. So in the last step, we have set the username and access key in the environment, right? Same we are going to directly take from the environment. So this, instead of hard coding, we will take from the environment. Then these are a couple of options. Do you want network, videos, console output? You can make it true, false, depends on a requirement. And this is the WebSocket endpoint that we need to use. And this is your final test will look like. Okay, so first we need to destructure Chromium, expect, mention your capabilities, connect to the WebSocket endpoint. And then once you get the browser, then you can continue with your page. Okay, so create a new page, go to that application, find that element, click, type, whatever activities you want to perform. And then you can use your assertion. And we need to use this expression. This is basically to mark the result. If it is pass, we need to make it pass. If it is fail, we need to mark fail on the LambdaTest. At the last, we are going to close the browser. So these are the steps that we need to perform, and I will show you now step by step. This example which we discussed just now, this is only for one browser combination and one platform combination. The example which we will see will try to run the same test on multiple browsers and different OS combinations. Yeah. So let's see how we can do that. Now let's make the required changes in order to run on LambdaTest. Okay. So again, quick recap on this one, that we need to run on these browser combination and we need to connect, right? Now we need to create our test in such a manner that we should not write this in each and every script. See, suppose if I have to write one script, I can just continue with this. But suppose if I have to run multiple tests, that every time I cannot provide all these options and this endpoint, right? I need to come up with an approach where you focus on the test instead of configuration. So what we will do, we'll make certain changes. So as of now, I'm going to delete couple of folders which is not required because we are going to build from the scratch. So we have this end-to-end example which I'm going to remove, delete permanently. Okay, so basically again it's a permission issue. So what I will do, I will just quickly run one command, sudo chmod 777, and this basically I will do for the complete project. So if you come back here, if I go cd dot, first let me clear this. So current working directory is this, Playwright with LambdaTest. I will go one step back and I will change the permission, chmod 777, and to this complete folder. It will simply ask my credentials. Okay, so now we have a permission. Again, go back to the same folder. Yeah. So let's delete this end-to-end. We don't need. So do not ask again. Deleted. Node modules required. Playwright reports fine. Test result fine. See, we have now example.spec.js. I am going to delete this. Again, we have one more folder, test examples. We don't need sample examples. We can delete it. So this is what we have right now, right? Node modules, reports, results, test, and our playwright.config.js file. Now let's create one config folder. So basically I will click on this plus, create a config. Now I will create one configuration file, or you can say capability.js file, where we will mention all the capabilities. For example, I want to run 3 different combinations. I will mention in this particular capability.js file. So tomorrow if I have to change the browser combinations, OS combination, instead of changing my test, I will change the capabilities. So create a new file, click on this plus icon. You can create a file called capability.js. And now here you can define all the capabilities. Now how to get these capabilities? So if you go to LambdaTest capability generator, from here you can generate the capabilities for your particular project. See, the moment you refresh, by default it will be Java. So you can select that I want to run Node.js. Now for Node.js, again we have a different framework, Nightwatch, WebDriver IO, Test Cafe, Jest. What we are right now looking is Playwright, right? So this is one of the capability that we have to use. So let's copy this. Now, since I have to use multiple browser and OS combination, so instead of giving one, I will create one array. So how we create array? Just bracket. Now you can define one capability. So in array, this is my one capability. Similarly, if I want to run, let's say my test on maybe Microsoft Edge, and let's say I want to go with 125 version, right? I got another capability. So just put comma here, put another capability. Let's say again, I want to run on different OS. So this time, instead of taking Windows 10, maybe I will take Mac OS, Sonoma. And let's say I want to again go with Chrome, latest one. So again, copy this. So basically now I used Windows 10 with Chrome, Windows 10 with Microsoft Edge with different version, and I use Chrome with different operating system. It says Windows 10. Maybe I will use this one. Yeah, it updated now. Mac OS Sonoma. So this is the one. So this is what we did. We created one capability.js file and we said we have an array of capabilities. So whatever test you will run, it will be running on these capabilities one by one. You can run one by one, you can run parallel, it's up to you. Now one thing that you will notice that if I have to provide username and access key, I need to use one more entry called user and another entry for access key. So we have browser here, platform here. Now let's use this build name access keys. So let's go ahead, and this should be part of LT options. Okay, so copy this. So maybe I can add here directly. So let's say this is Playwright build, and this I will say Playwright test for Windows 10 Chrome 126. Similarly, I can make the changes for other 4 capabilities as well. So again, I will copy this. I will come back here. This is for Edge 125. Similarly, I will do for third one. This is for Windows. Sorry, this is for Mac OS, and I can use Sonoma, and this is Chrome 126. Now basically I will be exporting this. Okay, so what I will do, I will just say module dot exports. I need to export this so that I can start consuming this whenever I need. So create one array with multiple capabilities and you can export. So this is the part of this configuration file, which is capability.js file in our case. Now once you're done with your capabilities, now if you notice, the next step is basically we need to connect to this endpoint, right? Now this is also common for each and every test. You will be connecting to this WebSocket endpoint and then you will be closing the browser. So instead of writing this in a script, we can create a utility. Okay, so what we will do, we are going to create one more folder now. So basically you can create a folder called utils. Now inside this you can have setup TearDown. So instead of keeping inside this, let's create outside. I will say utils. This is the empty folder. I'm going to create a separate file called setup.js file. Now basically we need to have this setup here. So let's do one by one. So first of all, what I will do, I will use require, and we need to use Playwright. And what we are going to do, we are going to basically import what? Chromium. So let's use const and we will use Chromium. So what we did, basically we imported Playwright and we are doing destructuring. We are only getting Chromium. We need this Chromium so that we can connect to the browser. This object can be used to launch or connect to Chromium returning instance of browser. Now what we are going to do, basically we are going to create one async function. Okay, async, and this will accept one parameter called capability. Now we are going to use arrow function, curly bracket open and close, and let's store this in a session called connect to browser. So basically we are creating one async function which accepts capabilities, and we will be using this connect to browser to connect to the browsers. So what we will do, we will actually connect to this WebSocket endpoint and we will return the driver. Come back here. Now can use this basically command where you are connecting to LambdaTest endpoint. Now this is the core part of our function. Basically what we are using chromium.connect with this endpoint. So basically we are trying to connect to a remote browser. So this is the core, and once it will connect, we are going to return this browser. And once you are done, we can export this. We can say module.export and we can export this connect to a browser. So this is the setup part which we will be using in our test. So async function that we are creating with name connect to browser, which accepts capabilities. Okay, then we are using chromium.connect. We are giving this endpoint which returns this browser, and we are exporting this from this particular setup.js file which we are going to consume in our test cases. And once you're done, we will say module.exports, and basically we are going to export this connect to browser which we will be consuming in our test. As simple as that. Again, no need to change this you can directly reuse it. So we have capabilities now. We also have setup which will connect to remote browser, which is basically LambdaTest, and now we need also another file which is for TearDown. So let's create another file called TearDown.js file. Now what exactly we are going to do, we are going to create one function called TearDown function which will take 2 arguments, page and object, and it will close the page instances and the browser instances. So let's create something called TearDown, and basically this will be our async function which will take 2 arguments. One is page and another one is browser. And basically this is what we typically use in order to interact with our test, right? Page and the browser. So what we need to do once we are done with our test, we need to close the page instance and the browser instances, right? So first of all, I will use await page.close, and again I will close the browser.close. And once you are done with this function, you can export this function. So just like we have exported this connect to browser function, in a similar way we are going to export this TearDown as well. So let me export this TearDown. So these are the three important files: capability, setup, and TearDown. Now let's see how we can consume this in our test. Now let's try to automate one application. Now you can use any sample application. If you want to automate your own applications, you can please go ahead, because the concept will remain same. Our main objective is whatever test you have to run on LambdaTest. Okay. So we have seen the capabilities. This is what the test is. Here in this example, they have used bing.com. We are going to use this sample application, again provided by LambdaTest, e-commerce playground. So you can use this for practice purpose. So what we'll do, we'll try to log in. We'll try to log in with some username password, and we'll see whether we are able to log in or not. This is done, and this is logout. Now this test I want to automate, and then I want to automate this on different browser and OS combination. So we have removed the previous test, right? Now let's create a new test, and let's see how we can use this capability.js file, setup, and TearDown. So let's create a new file, and I will give this file name is login.spec.js file. Now before we start, we need to basically import two important objects, right? We need to use test and object. So what we will do, we'll say require, we need Playwright test. Now we are going to import basically two important objects. One is test and one is expect. So we'll go ahead, const, we'll do test and expect. So basically test, we will be dealing with test, and expect is for assertion. Now we have used capabilities, utils, right? So now we need to import this utils as well. So I will be importing this setup.js and TearDown. So again, I will use require. What we need to import? So first of all, I will use dot current working directory. Then I need to import utils. From utils setup, right? Now if you go to setup, we are exporting this object, right? Basically function we are exporting, connect to browser. So this we will store here. Okay, curly braces, open, close, connect to browser. Same thing we will do for TearDown as well. So again, I will use require /utils/TearDown. And again, if we go to TearDown, we are exporting this function called TearDown. So I will import here const TearDown. So this is what we need to import. Now let's write our test. This is coming from the test object that we imported. Okay. Now we are going to go ahead and say login and logout test. Second is your asynchronous function, and this will accept a browser name. Curly bracket, open and close. It's an arrow function. So basically this test that we are going to write will run on the different browser combination that we have mentioned in the capabilities. Okay. Now what we need to do, let's increase the size. Now which browser, which OS? So basically now we need capabilities, right? So what I will do, again I will use require, and again we'll go to config capabilities, and let's store this in a variable const. Let's call this as capabilities. Now we are going to filter out the capabilities. So the moment you say import, it is going to import this capabilities, right? Now if you notice here, we have a browser name, right? Browser name, again browser name, and then again we have browser name. And this browser name is provided by Playwright. Name of the browser that runs the test. Default is set to Chromium. Most of the time you should set browser name in your test config. So now we need to filter out that in which browser and OS combination we need to run. So since we got the capabilities, I will say capabilities.find. Okay, we'll get all the capabilities one by one. So what we are going to do, we'll use arrow function, and from this capability, we'll get the browser version. Not browser version, we need browser name. So from this capability, browser name Chrome, browser name equal to Edge, browser name equal to Chrome, we'll get. And then we'll compare with this browser name. So you can use double equal to or triple equal to. So this will give me the capability. So one by one, it will be running on the different browser name that we have provided here. Okay. So first we imported the capabilities. Then we are using one find method, getting all the capabilities. From the capabilities, I captured the browser name. Then I'm comparing with this browser name. Now, once you get the capability, now we can use this to connect to a browser. Okay. But we can write one quick check. By any chance, if this capability is equal to null, then we'll simply throw one error and we'll say no browser found with this capability, or we can do reverse, no capability found for this browser. But in case if we got the capability, then we can continue. Now write await. Basically we use this, right, connect to browser, which is coming from setup. So we'll say connect to browser and we are going to pass this capability. And once the connection is done, we will be getting a browser. And once you got the browser, now you can request a page, browser dot new page. I will say page. And once you get the page object, now you're free to use all the Playwright methods and properties which is defined by Playwright, right? So let's say I want to go back and automate this. So let's say I want to automate. So I will say page dot go to. Once we land to this, we need to enter username, password. Or you can inspect this. I can use XPath CSS selector. So I'm using selectors of, okay, in case if you're using any other locator, XPath CSS ID name, you can use it. Let's say just to save some time, I have copied the XPath. Now I can use await page dot fill. So if you notice, we can pass selector, then we can pass the values. So the selector which I copied is XPath, and the value which I want to enter is, this is my username and password. I would recommend you create your own account and you can use it, but if you, in case if you want to use my account, you can use it. So this is to enter username. Similarly, let's say if I want to enter password, again I will copy this XPath, await page dot fill, pass the locator, and password is sample@1234. And once I will click on login, then I can move to the home page or the dashboard page. So I can see this is a text for forgotten password. I need to click on this. So I can use this XPath again. Await page dot click selector. Now notice the moment I log in, the URL is changing. Now I can put any assertion. I can verify the title. I can verify anything which is coming after login. So now I can use await expect. Let's go with URL. So I can use this to have URL. I'm expecting it should have account. Okay. So I can use /account/. And once I'm done, let's say I want to put mouse over and then I want to log out. Now if you notice, for logout, there are two options. Either you can put mouse over then logout, or you can see we also have an option called logout here. So let's say after this, I want to click on logout. I can use this XPath again. Await page dot click. And then the moment I log out, I want to verify this. I can verify this account logout. The multiple ways I will verify again with the help of URL. So await expect page to have URL, and I can provide verify the URL. So this is basically a test. This part will remain same for all of you. From here you can start writing your test. Now once you're done with your test, now if you go back to the documentation, we need to put basically try catch. If everything goes fine, this particular statement will mark your test passed on the Lambda test. By any chance, if your test is getting failed, your assertion is getting failed, it will update failed here. So what we can do, we can use this. So this is a snippet which I copied. What I will do, if you want the complete one, Okay, from here to here you can copy, otherwise you can put the last assertion or maybe the last three one. Control X, Control V. This is to mark test as completed or failed. If no error, this try will execute. This is going to modify the result as passed, and here you can put the remark. In case it fails, it will update failed, and here we can again provide the remarks. For example, if I say logged in successfully, here I will say login, logout, failed. We're almost done. So basically now how Playwright works, the moment you run your test, it picks up the project from your playwright.config.js file and then it executes. So now if you notice, the moment we create a sample project, so these are the projects we have. So it uses Chromium, Firefox, WebKit, and it executes, right? So all these are commented. But we don't want to run on this combination. We want to run with this combination. So obviously we need to tell that get all the capabilities and then run our test. So for this we have to make a couple of changes. So first of all, I'm going to remove all this, remove all the comments, and this is also not required, so I can remove. This is all commented one. So basically now we need projects, right? Now how do we get this project? So first we need to import this capability.js file. So come on top. So now let's import this capability. So I will say require, then project root directory, config, capabilities, and let's store this in one object, capabilities. So this is basically going to import this. Now we need to iterate this because this is an array of objects. So basically each and every configuration that we have given, it's an object, right? So let's come down here, and now we are going to use this. So let's put a comma here. Now let's see what we are going to do. So first of all, I'm going to take this capabilities and I'm going to iterate. So I will use map. Just use map. So we'll get capabilities one by one, right? So basically we'll get first capability, second capability, third capability. So I'm going to map this capability. We will be using arrow function. And now one by one, if you see, we are getting all these options from this capability. Browser name, browser version, then we need all this LT option, right? Now when you work with Playwright for project, we have to define two important parts. One is name, and then we have to use one more property called use. We need both. Now I can hardcode this name, but we are going to take this name from this capability. So if you notice, we have a name here which is coming under LT options. So we are going to use this name. What we will do, first of all, we are getting all these capabilities one by one, right? Using map. So we'll go to capabilities. First we'll go to LT option, which is this. Then inside this we have something called name. So I will use name. Now I will use, now if you open curly braces and close, the first thing that we need to pass is the browser name. Now which browser name you have to access? We need to access basically the browser name is this one, right? Which is directly here. So again I can say go back, capability dot browser name, put comma. Now I also need all the different properties. When I say different properties, I need all these options, right? So come back. Now use dot dot dot. This is basically a spread operator. So what exactly it will do? It will extract all these that we need in order to run all these properties. Okay, build, name, username, access key. So I'm going to use this spread operator instead of mentioning one by one. So I will say capability and LT options. So let's see what issue it is giving. Now after making all the changes, it says no overload method matches this call. Okay. So what you need to do, guys, here you will see the first, which is called TS check, right? You can remove this, not required. Plus now it shows no error and we are good to go. Now a couple of things which you don't need, you can remove it. So basically, let's say I don't need this comment section, I can remove it. All this additional comment, you can remove it so that it should be nice and clean. Okay, now you can remove this as well. So we are good to go. Let's see if we have any issues, we'll figure it out. Now let's do a quick recap before we execute. We have the capabilities, right? So we use different browser and OS combination. One thing which I want to highlight, the moment we captured all this from LambdaTest, we used one more property called tunnel, right? Use this tunnel only when you're running internal applications which is requiring a tunnel or a proxy. If not, you can remove it. Otherwise, you will get issues. So I'm going to remove tunnel because we are not using tunnel as of now. You can remove this tunnel as well. So capability is done. Then we have set up setup.js file. Then we have a TearDown, which is closing the browser and page instance. Then we have a test. Here, first of all, we are importing setup TearDown. Then we are importing capabilities. We are checking if capabilities is matching with the browser name that we have mentioned in the config.js. If yes, then we are getting the capability. By any chance, if no capability found, we'll get this. If capability exists, it will connect to the browser, we'll get the new page. Then you can continue with your test. And to evaluate the result pass or fail, we are using this snippet. And one thing which I noticed is basically what we are doing here. We are using Chrome, we are using Edge, but we are not using WebKit. So let's do one thing. Let's use WebKit as well, so that we'll get a clear idea. So again, go to Node.js, go to Playwright. This time, let me take Mac OS. Let me use WebKit. Okay, we used Chrome, we used Edge. Let's use this WebKit. And instead of Windows, let's take latest Sonoma. So again, if you go back, Chrome is this is Edge. Browser name, let me change to WebKit. Playwright WebKit, and version I will use 17.4. This I will change macOS Sonoma WebKit 17.4. Yeah, we're good to go. So we need to set username and password. Now let's go back, and now we need to finally set our environment. It's your username and access key. You can use export if you're using Mac and Linux, set for Windows. I'm using Mac, so I already have my username, which is mukeshotwani.50, and my access key is this one. Export LT access key this. In case if you want this, you can click on this, which is credentials, manage credentials. You get the username and the access key. We are good to go. Now I will use npx playwright test, current working directory test, and login.spec.js. Now let's execute this. The moment I hit enter, running 3 tests using 3 workers, and let's go back to LambdaTest. You can see the build still running. Now it is running on the 3 different combination. So this one is Windows 10 with Edge 25. Let's go back and cross check. Edge with 125 Windows 10. This one was on Windows 10 126, which is this one. And the last one was on Mac OS Sonoma WebKit 17.4. And now you can see the recording, everything. So depends on what capabilities you have set. So this is basically login and log out. Same thing you will find for Windows 10 126 Chrome and same thing you will find for Edge as well. So that's a quick guide how you can integrate your Playwright test. Now in the past we already discussed, in case if you want to run with different browser combination, OS combination, with Cypress, with Selenium, with Test Cafe, with WebDriver IO, you use any framework and it is supported. Okay, so feel free to explore this. If you face any issues, definitely we will help you out. So when it comes to real device testing, you can use LambdaTest for real device testing as well. There's so many options which you can explore. And whatever code we discuss, it's part of the repository. So whatever we discussed, config, test, utils, and config file, all is available. What you can do, you can directly copy paste, or you can clone this repository and explore from your side. We also have one end-to-end demo. So let's say if we want to implement this with page object model. So if you go to this repository, same thing, instead of writing the plain test, we have written page objects. So if you go to this e-commerce, we have used multiple pages. So home page, product page, checkout page, and this is one end-to-end demo for the same. So you can clone this repository and you can simply execute this. And we are using the same utils. We are using all the configurations plus all the best practices along with page object model. So you can clone this repository. There's a detailed guide and you can execute the test. So that's all about this video. If you face any difficulty, feel free to reach out to us, and all the links which I used right from Playwright till the documentation, all the repositories, you will be getting in the comment section or in the description. And in case if you haven't watched the previous videos which include Cypress, Selenium with LambdaTest, please go ahead and watch. And that's all from my side. Thank you so much. Have a nice day. Bye bye.